The towering glass and steel skyscraper of Chicago's most prestigious corporate law firm stands as a monolith of absolute power, financial dominance, and ruthless ambition. Inside its high-security executive floors, surrounded by sleek, minimalist marble, polished mahogany desks, and the distant hum of corporate trading algorithms, a relentless, cutthroat war for prestige, partnership status, and multi-million-dollar accounts is waged daily. At the absolute center of this legal battlefield, sharing the exact same birth year at 22 years old, stand two brilliant, fiercely uncompromising rivals whose contrasting philosophies, aesthetic codes, and professional styles ignite with explosive, tectonic force. Vivian reigns supreme as the undisputed golden standard of the firm's corporate litigation department. As the youngest senior associate and the favored protege of the managing partners, Vivian's presence in the boardroom commands immediate, unbroken attention. Her visual presentation is a masterclass in severe, untouchable perfection. Her immaculate, sleek chestnut hair falls straight to her shoulders, without a single stray strand, framing piercing grey-green eyes that survey the room with chilling, calculated authority. She is dressed in a sharply tailored, expensive dark blue pantsuit, paired with a silk blouse buttoned strictly to the absolute top. Vivian views law as an instrument of absolute clinical control. She despises disorder and uses her immense administrative backing, flawless logic, and deep knowledge of precedent to crush any rival who dares challenge her ascent. And operating as an absolute structural nightmare to Vivian's pristine corporate kingdom stands Zoe. Zoe is her complete, rebellious antipode, a brilliant, fiercely independent trial analyst and courtroom litigator who treats the firm's strict protocols, billable hour metrics, and corporate dress codes like utter trash. Also 22, Zoe carries the raw, untamed energy of the city's underground legal aid clinics. Her thick ash-blonde hair is tousled and messy, framing sharp, defiant brown eyes that burn with open contempt for corporate hypocrisy. A tiny, delicate silver ring glints from her left nostril, catching the harsh fluorescent glare of the office lights. Eschewing designer suits entirely, Zoe wears a worn black leather motorcycle jacket over a minimalist black top, paired with heavy, scuffed combat boots. While Vivian argues cases with rehearsed, ironclad precedent, Zoe dismantles opposing arguments with explosive, unconventional instinct and sheer analytical audacity. For the past year, Vivian has waged a calculated, systematic campaign to purge Zoe from the firm, utilizing every administrative weapon and partnership favor at her disposal. The boiling point of their bitter rivalry occurs on a high-tension Monday morning inside the firm's main glass-walled executive conference hall, right beneath the shadow of the loop. The floor is a sea of scrambling junior associates, rushing paralegals holding massive stacks of discovery binders, and anxious senior partners reviewing quarterly billables. At the edge of the central mahogany conference table stands Vivian, her posture rigidly upright, her dark blue shoulders squared, her gray-green eyes fixed coldly on the digital docket monitors. A few feet away, leaning casually against a structural concrete pillar with her arms crossed over her leather jacket, stands Zoe, chewing gum with a slow, deliberate rhythm that drives the senior partners insane. The conference monitors flash Zoe's latest independent brief, an explosive, unapproved motion that completely shatters the firm's defense strategy for their largest corporate client, exposing systemic negligence and outmaneuvering Vivian's primary brief by a historic margin. Vivian walks forward slowly. The movement is calculated, graceful, and utterly terrifying. She smooths the lapel of her dark blue jacket with a single, slender hand before her cold voice cuts through the noisy floor like a shard of surgical steel. "This legal filing is a structural disgrace to the firm's reputation. Vivian's voice is smooth, devoid of inflection, yet carries the crushing weight of absolute corporate authority. It completely ignores procedural safety protocols, mocks our client retainer agreements, and reads less like legitimate corporate defense and more like a reckless stunt from an ambulance-chasing activist. A sharp murmur ripples through the gathered legal team. Zoe's jaw tightens, a dangerous flash igniting deep within her dark brown eyes. She pushes off the pillar, stepping directly into Vivian's personal space, entirely unfazed by the height and the icy stare. "It's called actual justice, Vivian," Zoe fires back, her voice low, raspy, and vibrating with suppressed fury. "Not hiding behind 50-page indemnity clauses and a partner committee that rewrites liability every time your corporate sponsors drop their fees. People actually suffer from these contracts, even if you've forgotten what a real courtroom looks like beneath your expensive makeup and rehearsed briefs." Vivian does not blink. She doesn't raise her voice. Instead, she turns her icy gray-green gaze toward the firm's managing senior partner, leaning forward just enough to project total, unassailable control. "Ms. Zoe's professional conduct is fundamentally incompatible with our firm's standards," Vivian states coldly, ignoring Zoe entirely, as if she were a piece of defective office equipment. Furthermore, her unauthorized filing breaches Section 12 of our Associate Conduct Code. I have already filed a formal disciplinary motion with the Executive Committee, requesting her immediate demotion to the document review basement and permanent revocation of her trial privileges. The conference floor drops into a dead, suffocating silence. The declaration is an open execution order, a deliberate, calculated strike designed to sever Zoe's career at the roots and secure Vivian's unblemished path to junior partnership uncontested. Zoe steps in closer, her face inches from Vivian's, her brown eyes blazing with an intense, reckless fire. "You think a stack of disciplinary memos can bury me, Vivian?" Zoe spits out, a fierce, mocking grin curving across her lips as she tilts her head. "Keep hiding behind your partnership board and your fake corporate precedents. But sooner or later, your perfect little glass tower is going to crack, and I'm going to be the one holding the gavel when it comes down." The high-security archive level of the prestigious Chicago corporate law firm settles into a tense, secluded atmosphere long after the junior associates and senior partners have cleared the executive floors. The ambient soundscape of the night is a dense, layered texture. The low, vibrating hum of the nocturnal building ventilation system through heavy ceiling vents. The soft, sliding rustle of classified legal briefs and court dockets, and the steady, punishing lash of rain against the tall panoramic windows overlooking the sprawling, dark silhouette of the city. Deep within the cavernous floor, surrounded by towering rows of steel shelving units holding decades of corporate litigation history, the lighting is dimmed to a skeletal, clinical glow. Late in the evening, when the entire office complex has gone to sleep, Vivian executes her move with cold precision. She quietly turns the heavy brass deadbolt of the archive sector's security door from the inside, locking the perimeter securely. Her immaculate chestnut hair is still neatly styled, falling straight to her shoulders, though the collar of her dark blue pantsuit is slightly unbuttoned at the top as she steps out into the semi-darkened aisle. She spots Zoe standing near the corner of row 4, her ash-blonde hair tousled and messy across her forehead, wearing her battered black leather motorcycle jacket over a minimalist top, the tiny silver ring in her nose glinting in the pale fluorescent light. Before Zoe can react, Vivian moves with sudden, silent velocity. She crosses the narrow aisle in 3 long strides, catches Zoe completely off guard, and shoves her backward with sharp, calculated force. Zoe's spine hits the cold metal shelving unit with a soft thud. Before she can regain her footing, Vivian steps into her personal space, pressing her body flush against Zoe's to trap her entirely. Vivian raises her right hand, planting her palm flat against the cold metal shelf right beside Zoe's head, caging her in a rigid, inescapable barrier. The air between them turns instantly electric, charged with the volatile hostility of months of suppressed corporate warfare. Vivian leans in close, her face inches from Zoe's. Her piercing gray-green eyes burn with a furious, unyielding intensity as she speaks. Her voice drops to a lethal, freezing whisper that vibrates directly against Zoe's lips. "You are playing a dangerous game, Zoe," Vivian hisses, each word clipped and exact. "You think your little rogue court maneuvers go unnoticed? Another stunt like today, and I will personally make sure your license to practice is permanently revoked across this entire state. You are completely out of your depth." To emphasize the absolute weight of her threat, Vivian reaches out with her free hand, wrapping her slender, manicured fingers roughly around Zoe's chin, applying a sudden, sharp, controlling pressure. She tilts Zoe's face upward, forcing her to maintain unbroken eye contact, daring her to look away, demanding submission through sheer physical dominance. Zoe does not flinch, not for a single fraction of a second. Instead, a wild, reckless, and entirely fearless grin stretches across Zoe's lips. The silver nose ring catches the dim light as she tilts her chin further against Vivian's punishing grip, her dark brown eyes flashing with a dangerous, provocative defiance. Ignoring the threat entirely, Zoe casually shifts her weight, letting her hand brush lightly and deliberately against the back of Vivian's wrist, where it rests against the metal shelf, feeling the sudden, sharp hitch in the senior associate's breath. "Is that a threat, Vivian? Or are you just begging for attention?" Zoe whispers back, her voice low, raspy, and dripping with a mocking, razor-sharp edge. "Because for someone who claims to own this firm, you look terrified that someone is finally going to pull back the curtain on your precious precedents." The words hit Vivian like a physical jolt. The ironclad control in her gray-green eyes fractures for a brief, breathless second, her fingers twitching against Zoe's skin as the sheer audacity of the defiance knocks the breath straight out of her lungs. The torrential Chicago rainstorm batters the sleek, reinforced glass facade of the towering downtown corporate skyscraper with relentless fury. A blinding, jagged flash of lightning tears across the night sky, followed instantly by a deafening roll of thunder that rattles the heavy sound isolation panes of the 60-floor executive meeting suites. Simultaneously, a severe, high-voltage power surge, triggered by the storm, overloads the building's primary electrical grid, plunging the multi-story corporate headquarters into absolute, suffocating darkness. In a fraction of a second, the emergency backup generators groan, flicker, and die completely. Deep within the facility, inside the soundproof executive boardroom, the sudden catastrophic loss of power drops the sprawling technological enclosure into total blackness. The automated heavy security doors jam against their electronic tracks, wedged tight by the power failure, locking the room securely from the outside world. The multi-screen digital displays, automated window tinting systems, and heavy climate control ventilation units stutter and stall, leaving behind a thick, stagnant chill that immediately presses down on the space like a physical blanket. For the first few agonizing seconds, there is only the sound of heavy, uneven breathing echoing off the acoustic paneled walls. Vivian and Zoe stand mere feet apart in the pitch-black room, isolated together by fate, high above the deserted, rain-drenched city streets. Then, the razor-thin margin of Vivian's absolute self-control begins to violently shatter. The total lack of visibility, combined with the claustrophobic confinement of the locked room and the immense, crushing psychological pressure of their ongoing war for the junior partnership, strikes Vivian like a physical blow. Her pristine composure collapses instantly. A sharp, ragged gasp tears from her throat as her chest locks up in the grip of a severe, terrifying panic attack. A deeply hidden vulnerability she has guarded with her life from every senior partner, associate, and rival litigator. Slumping against the reinforced mahogany conference table, Vivian's knees buckle under her weight. Her hands fly to her throat with frantic, trembling urgency. With desperate, tearing motions, she yanks at the stiff collar of her dark blue silk blouse, ripping the fabric open to catch air that refuses to reach her lungs. "I can't. The air," Vivian's voice, usually a weapon of cold, authoritative precision, breaks into a high, frantic, breathless sob. Everything is collapsing. You ruined it. You destroyed my entire life, Zoe." She slides down the polished wood support, collapsing into a heap on the floor, her immaculate chestnut hair coming loose from its strict styling, falling in wild, disheveled strands across her pale, tear-streaked face. She babbles in a fractured, hysterical whisper, blaming Zoe for every single crack in the flawless corporate empire she spent years constructing. Zoe freezes in the dark. The sharp, abrasive sarcasm completely evaporates from her mind, replaced by a sudden, fierce jolt of instinct. Discarding all pretense of corporate rivalry, Zoe drops to her knees in the pitch-black boardroom, moving entirely by touch through the oppressive gloom. She reaches out, her strong fingers forcefully intercepting Vivian's frantic, clawing hands, locking them in a firm, unyielding grip to stop her from hurting herself. "Vivian, look at me. Stop," Zoe commands, her voice dropping all its usual mockery, turning deep, steady, and anchor-like in the dark. Zoe shoves her way closer, wrapping her arms securely around Vivian's trembling shoulders and hauling her back up against the solid, reassuring structure of the conference support. Zoe presses her body firmly against Vivian's, acting as a living shield, trapping her within a circle of warmth and unyielding physical presence. "Breathe, Vivian. Match my pace. In and out," Zoe whispers directly against her ear, her chest rising and falling in slow, deliberate rhythms. For several agonizing minutes, Vivian fights against the panic, her fingers digging desperately into the fabric of Zoe's leather jacket, trembling violently. But as Zoe holds her fast, refusing to let go, refusing to judge, offering absolute stability in the terrifying void, Vivian's frantic gasps begin to slow, her shoulders drop, and her breathing finally locks into sync with Zoe's steady, rhythmic pulse. In the suffocating dark of the locked boardroom, stripped of expensive designer suits, partnership titles, and professional armor, the two fierce rivals realize the terrifying truth. Beneath the corporate war, they are merely two mirrors, reflecting the exact same exhaustion, holding each other up at the edge of the abyss. The cavernous executive boardroom on the 60th floor of the Chicago corporate law skyscraper remains dead silent long past midnight, save for the low, vibrating hum of emergency servers and the steady, punishing lash of rain against the tall, panoramic glass windows outside. Following their harrowing hours locked together in the dark during the storm, the volatile dynamic between Vivian and Zoe has shifted from bitter corporate hostility into something far more dangerous, a destructive, suffocating codependency born of shared friction and stripped-down vulnerability. By day, they sit at opposite ends of the firm's grand conference tables, executing each other's professional reputations with clinical coldness, trading sharp, venomous glances under the bright fluorescent lights. But by night, the gravitational pull draws them back into the shadows of the empty executive wing, where their relentless rivalry explodes into a wild, feral intimacy. Vivian stands rigid beside the massive mahogany conference table, her immaculate chestnut hair pulled back into a sleek, tight clip, though a few stray strands cling damply to her flushed temples. Her crisp, dark blue pantsuit jacket is unbuttoned, the silk blouse beneath slightly ruffled, a visible scar of their shattered corporate armor. Zoe stands opposite her, leaning casually against the edge of the glass partition with her heavy combat boots crossed. Her ash-blonde hair is tousled and messy, falling wildly across her forehead, and her dark brown eyes glitter with a reckless, mocking challenge. The tiny silver ring on her nose catches the pale blue light of the downtown skyline bleeding through the glass. "You missed a critical precedent window during today's partner depositions, Vivian." Zoe draws out her words, her raspy voice a low provocation cutting through the quiet room. "Almost like you're losing your meticulous edge. Or maybe you were simply too distracted watching me dismantle your favorite senior associate's cross-examination." Vivian's gray-green eyes flare with sudden, incandescent rage. In a fraction of a second, the thin veneer of professional detachment snaps completely. Moving with terrifying, predatory speed, Vivian closes the distance, seizes the front of Zoe's battered black leather motorcycle jacket, and shoves her backward with a surge of fierce, desperate strength. She pins Zoe firmly against the cold glass of the 60-floor panoramic window, caging her in entirely. Vivian presses her body flush against Zoe's, trapping her, her hands trembling slightly as she grips the leather. The air in the boardroom turns instantly heavy, charged with the volatile friction of two opposing forces colliding at terminal velocity. "You are pushing this too far, Zoe," Vivian breathes out, her voice a low, ragged rasp vibrating directly against Zoe's lips. Her chest rises and falls rapidly beneath her open jacket. "If you keep playing with these boundaries, you're going to destroy us both. We will burn together, and nothing will be left of either of us." Zoe doesn't flinch. Instead, a wild, reckless, and intoxicating grin stretches across her lips. Her dark brown eyes lock onto Vivian's with an absolute, fearless abandon, refusing to yield an inch of ground. "Then let us burn," Zoe whispers fiercely, her voice dropping to a low, daring challenge. Without waiting another beat, Zoe surges upward, wrapping her hands around the back of Vivian's neck, tangling her fingers straight through the chestnut hair, dragging her down. Vivian yields with a sharp, involuntary gasp, crashing her lips down onto Zoe's in a brutal, desperate, and fiercely passionate kiss that obliterates every remaining rule, every filing protocol, and every vestige of their bitter war in the dark heart of the skyscraper. The grand marble-pillared federal courtroom of downtown Chicago is packed to absolute suffocation. Rows of tiered public galleries and press benches are occupied by an army of investigative journalists, national media correspondents, financial analysts, and every high-ranking member of the firm's executive partnership board, sitting rigidly in the front rows, anticipating the ultimate verdict of the trial of the year and the official sealing of the firm's multi-billion-dollar corporate accounts. At the exact center of the elevated trial counsel table stands Vivian. She looks every bit the untouchable, flawless star of corporate litigation. Her immaculate chestnut hair is smoothed into a sleek, professional perfection. Her bespoke dark blue pantsuit is tailored to absolute precision, and her piercing gray-green eyes survey the packed room with chilling professional detachment. Yet, beneath her stiff, buttoned collar, her pulse races with a fierce, electric anticipation. Seated just beside her at the digital evidence terminal is Zoe, wearing her scuffed black leather motorcycle jacket over a minimalist black top, her thick, ash-blonde hair falling wildly across her face, and the tiny silver ring in her nose catching the courtroom lights. She rests her strong, calloused fingers lightly over the master terminal override switch, her dark brown eyes locking onto Vivian with a silent, absolute vote of defiance. The presiding federal judge adjusts his heavy spectacles, looking down from the mahogany bench with a stern, expectant expression. "Counsel for the defense, you may proceed with the final closing statements regarding the financial structuring of the corporate accounts." The judge's voice booms smoothly through the courtroom speakers, echoing off the neoclassical stone walls. Before Vivian or the senior partners can utter another syllable, Vivian raises her hand, cutting off the proceedings with a single, sharp gesture. She doesn't use the podium microphone. Instead, she presses a master execution command on her encrypted tablet interface. Instantly, the massive, wall-to-wall digital evidence screens behind the judicial bench flicker violently, cutting from the corporate defense presentation to a glaring wall of neon red text. Gone are the corporate compliance charts, clean balance sheets, and sanitized audit reports. In their place, flash thousands of encrypted internal memos, illicit wire transfers, offshore shell company accounts, and recorded audio confessions detailing years of systemic embezzlement, tax fraud, and the illegal manipulation of judicial testimonies orchestrated by the firm's executive board. A collective, deafening gasp rips through the packed courtroom gallery. Camera shutters explode in a blinding, chaotic staccato of flashbulbs as press corps surge forward into the center aisle, thrusting microphones toward the counsel tables, while the managing partners turn chalk white, screaming in panicked, futile denial. Vivian's voice cuts through the roaring chaos like a diamond-edged blade, cold, steady, and absolute. Your corruption ends right now. Before courtroom marshals or the disgraced executives can recover from the shock, Zoe slams the final master override switch. The courtroom's colossal audio system streams the unredacted digital manifesto directly into the federal public record, a brilliant, blinding digital cascade of raw, unbridled rebellion against corporate tyranny. Without looking back, Zoe slips away from the terminal console, marching straight to the center of the well to stand shoulder to shoulder with Vivian. The blinding flashbulbs of 100 cameras capture them side by side, entirely unapologetic, their bitter war of status and privilege instantly incinerated in the light of absolute truth. Hand in hand, they turn their backs on the collapsing courtroom, running swiftly down the marbled corridors and out through the heavy glass exit doors into the cool, rain-slicked Chicago night. Parked at the curb is Zoe's heavy, high-performance sports car, its engine idling with a low, vibrating growl against the concrete. They don't hesitate. Pulling open the doors, they leap into the machine as Zoe tears the throttle wide open, launching the vehicle away from the courthouse steps just as distant police sirens begin to wail through the heavy urban rain. Speeding down the winding asphalt highway under the pouring rain, Zoe cuts the engine, letting the car coast to a silent stop on a deserted scenic overlook above the glittering expanse of the city lakefront. As the relentless rain drums against the windshield, and the distant wail of sirens echoes through the canyon of skyscrapers, Vivian turns to face Zoe, tangling her fingers deep into the messy, ash-blonde hair at the nape of her neck, pulling her close. With the city lights stretching out below them like a sea of burning stars, and the vast, wide-open world waiting ahead, Vivian crashes her lips down onto Zoe's in a deep, fierce, and utterly consuming kiss, a final breathless surrender that obliterates every rule of their past forever.